If you are a loving and a lovable Christian, if you are a compassionate person, you will have more ministry opportunities probably than any other person around you. Amen. Doesn't matter how gifted you are or you are not. If you have compassion, you're a prime candidate for the ministry of Jesus. Jesus will love to indwell you and complete his own ministry through you. Amen. We all need a lot more compassion, don't we? That's right. And the good news is, Jesus has more than enough compassion for all of us, even though we at times get ourselves into circumstances where we tend to not be maybe as understanding or compassionate as we could be. Like that morning in Washington, D.C. when I ran out of my house, heading for a committee meeting at the General Conference, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a breakfast person. I need to have breakfast. I got so busy on the campground yesterday, I actually missed breakfast and lunch. Because every time I tried to go and get something, somebody would approach me. So today I've bought a new pair of running shoes. I'm going to run. You know? But I made up for it last night. I had a good dinner last night, so God is gracious, huh? But I ran out of my house and I forgot to eat anything. And I got in the car and I'm driving and I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't eat anything. And then my mind said, well, just round the corner is that little strip mall there. This is Washington, D.C. There's little strip malls everywhere. I'll slip in there and go to that French deli. I'll just have a croissant or something simple. So I pulled into the strip mall and every parking space was filled. 7 o'clock in the morning, I said, Washington, D.C. I mean, I've got to wait at 7 o'clock in the morning to get a parking spot. Anyway, I waited for about 5 minutes and I finally saw some tail lights come on and somebody's reversing out, so I raced over. It's very competitive, you know, you've got to get in first. I raced over and made sure that I got this spot. And I totally failed to take into account there was a small van. Apparently he'd been parked there for 15 minutes. It had the name of the French Deli painted on the side of it. And I looked at the driver and I recognized, he doesn't know me, but I recognized him as the owner of this French deli, this little Frenchman. Anyway, I said to myself, well, I got it. Because he'd been waiting for this space because it was outside his business. He wanted to unload supplies there. I didn't know that. I was about to get out of my car and I looked in the rear vision mirror and the little Frenchman had got out of his van and he's walking over towards me. You can almost see the smoke coming out of his ears, you know. He is so angry that I have grabbed this spot without even giving any consideration to the fact that somebody else might be waiting for it. I didn't even see him when I grabbed it. And he came over and with his fist he started thumping on my driver's side window like this. I thought it was going to break. He was so angry. I pushed the button. It's an automatic window and it went down. And I moved myself across into the passenger seat because he looked angry enough to thump me, you know. And he stuck his head in the window and he cursed me. He had no idea that I can hear French, you know. And he's cursing me and swearing at me. I even learned a few new words for my vocabulary, you know. He was calling me everything, but as I listened carefully, I realized that he's actually saying, among other words that I can't repeat, he was saying that I am a very selfish individual. That I took this place and he'd been waiting there 15 minutes to get it and I didn't care. I'm typical of people in Washington. I'm just a selfish person. So I looked up and I said to God, you know, my inclination is to pop this guy on the nose. That's my natural inclination. He's so arrogant. He's so coarse. Yes, I made a mistake, but does he have to curse me like this? And I just lifted up and I said to God, I need your mind right now. Amen. And the greatest peace just came over me. And this guy's going on and on and on. Finally, he wound down and he says, "Don't you have anything to say?" I said, "Well, it's been a little difficult up till now for me to get a word in." He said, "Well, what's your excuse?" I said, "I agree with you." "What do you mean you agree with me?" I said, "I am a truly selfish individual. I failed to see you waiting there. All I was concerned about was that I get this spot. That's how selfish I am. I agree with everything," well, not everything you've said, but a lot of it. "That is me. And I'm really sorry." And he's, if I'd thumped him one or sworn back at him, he could have handled that, but he doesn't know what to say. I said, "I'll tell you what," and I couldn't believe I said this myself. This is the first time in my life I've ever done this, because in Washington, normally I'd say, "Hey, buddy, butt out, Too bad, wait for the next spot." I'm capable of saying that. I'm a city boy, born and raised in the big city. My favourite place to drive in the country is New York City, If the taxi drivers get out of their car and swear at me, I jump out of my car and go like this to them, I love it. Anyway, this guy can't handle the fact that I'm being so gentle. I said, "I'll tell you what," and this is the first time in my life I've ever done this. I said to him, "I tell you what, I will back out." I said to myself, where did that come from? "I will back out. You can pull in, and I'll just wait for the next spot. Once again, I really apologise. I failed to see you." And he can't speak. So I backed out. He pulled in. I waited several more minutes. And another spot opened up, and I was a little more careful this time. I got it, but I made sure I wasn't pushing someone else out. And I was about to get out of my car, and I looked in the rear vision mirror again, and I see the Frenchman coming over again. I said, he's not done with me yet. So this time I got the window down in advance, and I moved over into the passenger seat in case he wanted to try me again. And he stuck his head in the window of my car. He says, "I was pretty rude to you a few minutes ago." I said, "I believe I can agree with that statement." I love these moments. He said, "But you were so gentle and kind with me in return." Oh, I said, "That's easy to explain. It wasn't me." That's right. And he looks around the car and he says, "You're the only person in the car." Oh, I said, "I've got you now." Well, he said, "Who was it if it wasn't you?" And I went like this. Amen. It was my Father. That's right. Mon Père en ciel, my Father in heaven. And he went. I said, "Yes." And I said, "By the way, you should be very grateful that my Father responded and not me." And he ponders this for a minute, and he says to me, "Were you coming in to get some breakfast?" I said, "I am desperately trying to get in there to get some breakfast." He said, "Well, look, you probably know who I am." I said, "Yes, I know who you are." And we introduced ourselves. He said, "Well, look, seeing I own the business, why don't you come in and have breakfast on me?" So, of course, I immediately planned to have a much larger breakfast. I decided I might as well have the whole enchilada. So I'll have a complete breakfast. Blow the committee, I didn't even make it. And this guy says to me, "Would it be okay if I joined you for breakfast?" I said, "Be my guest in your own restaurant, please." I said, "By the way, why are you so anxious to join me for breakfast after what's happened between us?" And he grinned at me and he said, "I would be most grateful if you could share with me how maybe I could," and he went like this. Oh, wow. And every time, even to this day, if I go into that business, he'll drop everything, treat me to a meal. I am never charged, and he'll want to talk more about how he can have this kind of grace in his life. And I looked up and I said to God, thank you for not letting the natural, carnal Bill respond to a situation that I would have blown and wasted and failed to glorify God in.
That's right.
I'm learning. How about you?
That's right.
God wants to glorify himself even in my ordinary daily encounters and experiences that I traditionally waste.
That's right.
He doesn't want to waste one moment. He can turn anything around.
Amen.
If I'll just give him permission to be in my mind.
Amen.
That was the compassion of God. God's compassion
Wonderful.
flowed through me for a feisty little Frenchman, you know.
Yes.
How's your faith this morning? Are you allowing God's compassion to flow through you?